So I'm joined by Robert Benjamin, who's a filmmaker, who's also the screenwriter and editor for the film Bloody Hell, which we've reviewed recently. So welcome, Robert.
Thank you so much, Mike.
No problem. I think the first question I got to ask is how the script for Bloody Hell came about, and how you got from writing a script to actually getting the film made.
Yeah, it was a interesting process and chain of events. The idea came traveling, and I'm a paranoid person, and I saw a group of people looking at me oddly at an airport, and so my mind just ran with it. It was like, they're not being friendly, they're plotting to kidnap me. So I went out to the souvenir shop, bought a notepad, and just started jotting down all the things that I would do if that happened. And honestly, I think I just like kind of outlined the entire film sitting there at the gate. That's even kind of where, for those who have seen it, that's kind of where the conscience came as well. That all came in this fluster of paranoia and talking to myself and arguing with myself about what would I do. And I found myself disagreeing with some of my original thoughts, so I kind of split that personality into two characters, if that makes sense. And then as far as getting the film made, it was kind of just it was luck, which is when preparation meets opportunity. So I had worked on the producer's previous film, Better Watch Out. I had edited the trailer for that film. And once that was out, they were looking for another project, and I happened to have the script for Bloody Hell. So it was just a cosmic joining of miracles, I guess.
So you have this sort of very interesting sort of narrative device in the script, as you mentioned. The main character Rex is sort of subconscious, who acts as a sort of foil. Sometimes he's rational, sometimes he's sort of feeding his worst impulses. So it's interesting sort of hearing you say that that came about just from sort of listening to yourself mull over these sort of weird thoughts.
Exactly.
The other interesting thing is the fact that you've got a male protagonist in this. A lot of films would go down this road with a sort of female. Is it because you were sort of more comfortable sort of writing, as you said, you're kind of basing this around your own sort of thought process?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would love to write like a badass female character. I just haven't yet. In this instance, it was more like, what would I do? And I've said before in another interview, I mean, Rex is pretty much me if he was just a lot more badass. The real me probably wouldn't have gone to the lengths that he went to. But it was also the idea that I love action movies, I love horror movies, I love both of those worlds. So to combine the two was an interesting thought, where I thought, well, what if John McClane from Die Hard got kidnapped by the Texas Chainsaw Massacre family? How would that look? So that was kind of also the initial thought going in, is what if I joined these two worlds and watch the madness fly? So that's pretty much where my head was at.
It's interesting. One of my favorite sort of movie tropes, sort of from action films and things, is the idea of like bad guys who bite off more than they can chew. Eventually they're going to hit somebody who can hit harder than they can. I think that's kind of what happens here, is that this family have been surviving or been sort of maintaining this lifestyle of theirs for quite a while. Sure. And they have no reason to believe that this guy is going to be anything different. And he wouldn't have been if it wasn't for the fact that anesthetics don't work the same way on him as most people. The fact that he wakes up halfway through. So that was.
Rex got very lucky. He got very lucky with the lifestyle that he's lived. Just the sheer coincidence of, like you said, the anesthetics not working, and the knowledge of being in a hyper traumatic scenario just recently, 8 years ago, where he knows how to deal with these kind of people. So they didn't account for any of that.
Yeah, and I suppose, getting out of prison, I mean, doing 8 years in prison probably does wonders for your sort of sleep routine on
Yeah.
top of that. So, um, one of the other things, is a great little moment in the film where you kind of set this thing up where we follow Rex's worst impulses. The fantasy in his head, like for example, when he's at the diner and he got the paparazzi sort of taking stupid photos and everything, and he sort of gets up and throws the table at them, and then of
Right.
course, well, it's just in his head. He's playing it out. Later on, there's a scene with the kid, and I must admit, when I'm watching, I'm thinking, okay, was this a fantasy moment? Is it going to suddenly snap back to reality? When it's like,
Right.
no, it hasn't. It's just plowed on, which was quite shocking, actually. That whole little sequence.
Right.
But
Yeah, no, that's great. I'm glad that was your takeaway, because I think that was. Oh, I'm so sorry. That was initially the idea was you set up this world where he has this PTSD and he has these fantasies. So when something crazy does happen like that, I wanted the audience to, exactly the way you felt, be very unsure of what's happening. But it's not too long after that you realize, no, he's really crazy.
yeah, basically. There's some interesting sort of social commentary in there to do with sort of armchair detective kind of things. Armchair experts. I think because the whole bank robbery bit is the video sort of leaks onto YouTube and that, and then there's a great scene with some guy going, well, what he should have done, because he's such an expert and everything. So, well, no, you weren't there, but I mean, you must come across this sort of stuff a lot on sort of YouTube and other platforms.
Yeah, well, that YouTube clip was inspired by one of those video channels I've watched plenty of times, where there's a guy commenting on the like the security camera footage, and just the fact that things are spread so rapidly like wildfire these days. Little clips of the real world, which we would have no knowledge of a decade ago. The fact that the internet and social media has really opened up our eyes to happenings around the world, and where people who make a snap judgment in a bank can become an overnight celebrity for the good reasons and for the horribly wrong reasons. And to have just the mixed reaction from the public, I thought that was a very interesting angle to take on, because it's pretty accurate. You would have plenty of people cheering for this guy, and you would have plenty of people saying that was not a good thing to do. So it's not really making a commentary on whether he was good or bad. I mean, I think people would make their own decisions. It's just more the fact that people have different perspectives.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. Was there on the sort of journey from sort of page to screen, as it were? I mean, was there anything you had to sort of leave out that that may have been in the script that worked on paper but possibly didn't work on film?
Well, there's a couple things. So on the DVD, there are 5 deleted scenes, which when you write a script, when I wrote this script in particular, I was like, oh, this is so tight. You can't cut anything out, because if you cut one scene out, it's a house of cards. Well, it surprises you, because we do the full cut, and we do a test screening, and then we do another test screening, and we kind of weigh the results. And we found that people were not sympathizing with our lead character fast enough. Originally in the script, what he did in the bank wasn't to be known until that flashback. So you kind of there's a whole sequence that was cut, where he visits the bank after he gets out of jail, and people are saying, oh wow, I can't believe you're back, you saved us, blah blah blah, but you don't know what he did. It's just a reaction of everyone around him, which is like, oh, this is interesting, what did he do there? So you have a sense that he did something, but people weren't really digging that. So we recut the open of the scene to kind of give a foreshadowing flashback / flash forward of what he did in the bank, just not giving away all the goods, but enough for people to say, okay, I'm on his side. So yes, there are a few scenes that we had to leave out.
I mean, you come across things a lot where a director has also written the screenplay, and you get the feeling that they're being a bit too precious about it,
Mm.
and it probably is a bit longer than it should be. But you
Mhm.
certainly don't get that impression with this film. I don't think.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, what poor Rex goes through is it would be game over for just about most people,
For sure.
So yeah, I mean, and it happens so quickly. It's like, well, before he's even had a chance to do anything, he's in this state sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's really challenging, and there's some great sort of asides for some visual gags and things thrown in, which really work as well. So yeah, um, I'm just I've lost my train of thought.
Ask whatever you want.
um, I so the film is set it's set mostly in Finland, but I'm assuming you didn't actually shoot in Finland.
No, we shot on the Gold Coast of Australia.
Really?
The both America and Finland were all
It's
in
all
the
in
same
in
place.
Australia. I did read somewhere that the director was from Australia. So
Yeah,
yeah.
well, what happened to explain that a bit was, I wrote the film not knowing that I was gonna sell it to an Australian
Mm,
company. But when, like I said, the Brett Thornquist, who's the producer of Better Watch Out, that was
mm,
also an Australian movie. So that was basically the criteria in order to get funded by Screen Queensland, which is the Screen Film Board. You have to meet a certain criteria of cast and crew who are Australian, and it's like 99.9% of the cast and crew have to be Australian. Well,
mm,
I wrote it. I'm American, so everyone else on the crew had to be Australian, pretty much. And there's a couple Americans in the cast. I believe both lawyers, Rex's
mhm.
lawyer and the defense, were both American. But other than that, all Australians.
That's amazing.
Even the Finnish family, yeah, the Finnish family, they had
Yeah,
to learn all their lines phonetically, which is amazing to me.
yeah,
Amazing.
absolutely.
The mother's 1 minute monologue in Finnish is astounding. I was blown away by what they were able to do. But that's actors. They act and they're good at it.
Indeed. I mean, the film does a good job of selling what the family are up to without necessarily going into detail. For example, when Rex is in the basement and he's looking around, and he got like all the tourists
Mhm.
suitcases and the piles of bikes and things like that. It's really ominous, and without actually it doesn't need to be explicit about anything. It's just like, yeah, you know exactly what's going on. It's freaky.
Yeah, I like to give a little tease. I mean, you don't know how things are going to work on paper, but when I saw that, like what the art department did with that basement, you kind of get enough context clues to realize they're up to no good, and they've been up to no good for quite a while. So
Hmm.
I think that did come across.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing as well is with this particular family, I can't remember which actor told me. He said, that the best bad guys are the ones that actually don't realize they're the bad guys. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's sort of the case here. They're just looking after their younger brother, or their older
Yeah,
brother. You
yeah,
know,
absolutely. And in the many years that they had this guy, they've tried all sorts of things.
Mm,
Ali even says it was their last resort. But when you have a hungry child, you do whatever you need to do to feed him. It's like Little Shop of Horrors, which no one's
mm,
made that comparison yet, and I didn't really even write it with that in mind. But it is. It's like feed me, Seymour. It's like I gotta feed the plant. What do you want
yeah,
me to do?
absolutely.
And that's
Yeah.
all he wants to eat. So
Mm,
no, you're right. They do believe that they're doing the greater good, I guess.
mhm.
Something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's one of the sons sort of turns around and goes to Rex and says, "You're a monster," because you've come into our family and
Yeah,
sort of destroyed
yeah,
us.
yeah, yeah. How dare you
Yeah,
stop us from our
exactly.
lifestyle?
Exactly. Yeah, it's a wonderful film. It is very surprising.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I don't actually have any more questions for you, Robert. That's about it.
Great.
But
I'm certainly glad you enjoyed it. It's
no, we did. Yeah, we
awesome.
we definitely enjoyed it. Um, what is next for you? I see there's a couple of sort of credits on your IMDb page.
Yeah, that's a great question. I I don't know. That's the straight
Mhm.
answer. That's the short answer. I'm still without representation. I have a bunch of screenplays in the works. I know I'm talking with Brett on a couple projects, but nothing's definite. I do want to say that if you would like to see a sequel, which I would love to write, and I have a story fleshed out in my head, support this film. Talk about it, share it. Don't shut up about it. If there's going to be a part 2, then there has to be enough support for the first one. So it's not an easy film to find. Not everyone's talking about it, but I know there's an audience for it because those who see it like it. So
absolutely, yeah.
Spread the word, and hopefully we can make another one.
Robert, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you so much, Mike. It was a blast. Appreciate it.
Cheers. Thank you very much.